Okay. And just quickly, if you're able to, if you currently put out a newsletter or have customer communications of any kind, would you put that in the chat box? Just put like a yes or a heck yes or an emoji of some kind, like whatever you like. Throw that in the chat box, and we'll have an idea of who does what here. We've got a few people. Gosh, I feel like I'm like the last person on earth to know about this newsletter Mailchimp thing. Luddite. Stacy, thank you. Stacy, not yet. Thank goodness. So there's two of us. Okay, so let's get rolling here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for our maiden voyage of the NPAN live format. I'm David Zarling, Program Manager for the Niche Meat Processor Assistance Network based out of Oregon State University. I am not calling from Oregon though. I live in Washington, usually in the North Cascades, but today I'm lucky enough to be in Seattle on a beautiful, beautiful spring morning. So if you don't know what NPAN is, we are a cooperative extension community of practice that exists to provide technical assistance and education to small and mid-sized livestock ranchers, meat processors, and all the associated segments of their supply chain partners. But ultimately, like, we do outreach to small business, and like if you're not a producer or a meat processor and you're here today, great, we're very happy to have you because high tide raises and floats all boats, right? So today's presentation is our very first NPAN Live, and it's a little bit different. It's a new take on an old format, the webinar, right? We are all webinared to death from the pandemic times, and while webinars tend to be like very social, very lecture focused, this is going to be more of ultimately this is really going to be a short demonstration and then a roundtable discussion. This was born out of a program that was funded by Western SARE, Sustainable Agriculture through Research and Education. It's called Creating Impactful Programming for Farmers and Ranchers, a co-learning project for educators. And the goal of this program is to develop a learning community where expertise and experience is shared in a way that creates more impactful learning opportunities for working professionals, producers, and operators. And so, in a nutshell, this project is more or less taking data and doing some learning experiments to figure out how adults learn. And what we found over the last couple of years is adults don't love being talked at week after week through webinars, and more retention and engagement and impactful learning happens when there's a discussion to be had. So that's kind of like what we're focused on here today. That's why we're in a meeting format and not a webinar format, so we can all see each other should we choose to have our cameras on and be able to talk rather than using a Q&A box. So the way we'll do this today is our guest, who I will introduce momentarily, who some of you already know, is going to give us a 15-20 minute presentation on a skill. And today the skill is email marketing basics, raising the stakes with Mailchimp. And then feel free throughout the presentation to put your questions in the chat box or use the hand raise function, because when the hand raise happens, I get like a little ping noise and it tells me somebody's got a question, and that way you don't get ignored forever. And then we'll just kind of, once we're done, we'll have a roundtable discussion. You can like share your experiences with newsletters and your failures. I've got plenty of those. But I have a lot less today because our guest, Mara Steinitz, has like helped me and NPAN so much with how we put out our newsletters. Now, you may, if you only get the big newsletter monthly, you may not have seen much change yet because I haven't had a chance to employ these new techniques that she's going to teach us today. But we do have a year-long program called the Mastermind, the Meat Processor Academy Mastermind, and it's been a really cool meeting of minds of 18 different processors, mostly owners and high-level operators who get together, and we're like diving way down in the weeds of our business mechanics, right? And our successes and our failures and our challenges. And we're solving these things together. And we have a monthly newsletter. And Mara helped me put together something that is effective and not a complete dumpster fire of unnecessary data, which I love, which I'm prone to. So Mara's super efficient and really creative and is a great teacher, and we're so happy to have her here today. So that's all I got. I'm going to stop taking up all the oxygen in the room here and would love to introduce Mara.
Hi, I'm Mara. I am an email marketing specialist with Taste Profit Marketing. And Taste Profit is one half of a kind of sister business duo with a company called Kitchen Table Consultants. And together we work to make farms and food businesses profitable for good by doing business consulting, accounting and bookkeeping, and then marketing. And so I am the lead copywriter and email marketer here at Taste Profit, but my background is entirely in the meat industry. I worked in whole animal butcher shops for a long time before deciding that I wanted to kind of broaden the reach of my ability to talk about meat. So I went from being behind the counter to being behind a computer where I write websites and emails and product descriptions. And I'm so happy to be here today because my two favorite things are talking about meat and talking about emails, and I get to do both of them in this webinar. And so what we're going to talk about right now is just kind of email marketing basics. And so first thing is, what is email marketing? And email marketing is really, it's any kind of direct communication that you're having with your current and potential customers. And so it might look like newsletters. It might look like automated emails. So let's say you have a new customer and you set up a series of automations where they get, 5 emails over the span of a week that say, this is who we are. This is our favorite sausage blends. This is exactly what you need to do when you are filling out your cut sheet. And instead of you having to send that email individually to every single new customer you have, you're setting it up in an automation so that it sends automatically when you put their email in. And then email marketing also might be like a one-off promotional campaign. Let's say you really need to fill spots in July and you want to send an email to your entire list, even the people who haven't processed with you in 2 years, just to be like, hey, we have some spots. Do you want to come? That's also that's also email marketing. If you go to the next slide, you'll see some kind of examples of email marketing things. So the Good Food Jobs one, that's their weekly newsletter. It comes out weekly. Your newsletter can be weekly, it can be monthly, it can honestly be quarterly. It doesn't have to be like all the time. The minute email, that's kind of just like a one-off promotional, look, we have products back. And then the Miller's Biofarm, that's an email that goes out weekly. It's not quite a newsletter, it's just a reminder to put your order in. But all of these count within the category of email marketing. And if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about why email marketing. So the number one thing about email marketing is that email marketing is kind of the only form of communication and marketing that you fully control. So with social media, you make a post, you have followers, but we all know that with algorithms, who knows if they're actually seeing your posts. And you have your website and you work really hard on it, but like random people show up to your website or don't see your website. With email marketing, you have this list of emails that people gave to you and you send an email, and as long as you are not like doing terrible things that will end you up in spam, like they're going to see your emails. And so that's huge. And that's why email marketing is so valuable. But it's also valuable for like kind of softer reasons. It's a really great way to build relationships with your customers. When you're sending emails, you're gaining trust, you're increasing transparency, you're building loyalty. And you're also just kind of getting ahead of challenges and questions by proactively communicating. So like if you're never communicating with your customers, They probably don't have a sense of who you are. They're probably not that loyal to you, except for that maybe like you're the plant in their area that they can get into. But really you want them to like come to you because they like you. And so I think that it's just a way to make your life easier. Like you can send, one email out about how you change the spice mixes in your sausages, and everyone will get it and they'll know. Or they'll still ask you questions, but you can be like, remember that email that I sent you? Um, or if you have a change in one of your policies or a change in your hours, if you're already utilizing email marketing and you have your customer base used to receiving emails from you, then they're more likely to open that email. They'll see your policy change. You won't have to do like a million phone calls or a million one-off emails. And I think that that just makes it hugely valuable to be able to have that direct line of communication. So that's kind of email marketing more broadly. And today we're specifically talking about kind of email software. And we're going to talk specifically about Mailchimp as an email software. So the thing about email marketing is that it is different from you just queuing up, a big email in your Gmail account where you hopefully BCC all the people. Side note about big emails that are not from email software providers, you should always BCC your list so that no one can reply all, because no one likes getting reply all emails. That's just a side tidbit of email etiquette. But email software providers, if we go 2 slides over here, are kind of these software that allow you to send emails. So they help you to send kind of professional, organized emails, and they allow you to track your impact. And that's the biggest thing about email software providers. When you send a email Gmail to 50 people, you have no idea how many people opened it. Maybe you get some responses, but that's the only data you have. With an email software provider like Mailchimp, what you get is a ton of analytics that tell you the open rate and the click-through rate on your links, and if your emails are bouncing or if people are unsubscribing. And that data you can then use to inform how you send emails going forward. And so the other thing you can do with email software provider, they allow you to really easily collect email addresses and customer data. They usually have little like forms that you can build and embed onto your website that you can collect, like email, first name, last name, services they're looking for, all sorts of data that then will let you send more personalized emails. And they also let you create really beautiful, visually appealing emails. They're not just going to look like a bunch of text on the screen like it came from someone's personal account. They're going to have that beautiful imagery. And like I said, they let you look at the data. And there's a ton of different email software providers. Honestly, they all have their strengths and their weaknesses. I, like, every 2 months find one that I think is the solution, and then inevitably discover that it has its own weaknesses. So it's kind of just picking the one that works best for you. But today we're talking about Mailchimp because Mailchimp is a great one to start. This is because Mailchimp offers a free level. Most email software providers, you can do like a week trial, but then you have to pay. Mailchimp, you can start for free. It should be noted, you can only do very limited things on free Mailchimp. You can like send one email to 500 people. But it doesn't get that much more expensive. Like if you're paying $20 a month for Mailchimp, you're having almost full capabilities on Mailchimp, which is generally much more affordable than other email software providers. So if you go to the next slide. See, this is kind of what Mailchimp looks like when you log into it. It has a place where you can see your campaigns. So that's the emails that you sent. You can see your audience. So that lets you like look at your contacts, update information about them, organize them. If you have, people who only come to you for custom exempt processing versus people that are coming for USDA processing, you can divide those into 2 separate lists and you can send them separate emails so they're not getting information that's not applicable to them. You can do your automation. So if you want to do that, like new customer or first time customer automations, that's where you do that in under journeys. And then you can go to the analytics and it'll show you everything you need to know about the emails. So if you go to the next slide, they're really easy to use. When you start your campaign, you decide who to send it to, you decide who you're sending it from, you make your subject and you design your content. It's pretty straightforward. They walk you through the whole thing and you have a beautiful email. The way to make this even easier is with a template. I think a lot of people feel that you have to start every email from scratch, and that's not the case. If you have an email template, it will make sending your regular emails so much easier. If you're the next slide, your email template will remind you of what to include. So if you're like, I have a newsletter, what do I put in my newsletter each month? Your template will have the slots for each of the pieces of information that you include, so you don't have to remember the structure each month. It will look really visually appealing because it'll have your logo and your design and all of those choices that you've made once. So you don't have to make them every time. And the number one secret in email marketing is that you don't have to start your templates from scratch. If you are not a visual design whiz, I am deeply not a visual design whiz. I am really a words person. But I really successfully build emails from people because I just start with pre-existing templates and I organize them to reflect the brand of whoever I'm working with, and then we go from there. And that's really what we want to show you how to do today. Yes, David?
I have a question, and I didn't mean to go forward. So just really quick. So the campaigns. So you open up Mailchimp. The campaigns are the actual emails that you send.
Yes.
The audience are your contact list. And when you do automations, will you be able to kind of explain at some point a little bit more about, like, let's say um, I'm selling vegetables and I get a brand new sign up for my CSA this year during the sign up period, or I'm a processor and I get a brand new customer that wants to schedule a slot with me. Like how the automations work. Can you explain that, like when the time is appropriate?
Of course.
Okay, sweet.
All right, so I am going to share my screen now to show you how to build a template. But before I do, does anyone have any questions about that kind of like broad overview of email marketing? We also have room at the end for questions, so I'm gonna keep rolling here with our talking about templates, and then I will talk about automations once we do the template build. So if you are building a template, you come to Mailchimp, you go to content, you go to email templates. Click on email templates. You then click create template. And that's where you choose a starting point. And so you can just choose, if you're feeling really like design oriented, you can just choose one of these layouts and then you can do all of the building yourself. But if you are not so design oriented, you can choose one of the pre-existing templates and just edit it to show your kind of company and your brand. This is my favorite template, as David knows, because this is what we used for the mastermind template. I think that it is really versatile. And honestly, if everyone was using this template, it wouldn't be the end of the world. The emails would still look great. So this is what the template looks like to begin with. It's a bookstore template. What I like about it is that it is really straightforward. It's clear blocks of content and text. There's a lot of white space, and it's pretty easy to manipulate. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to change all of these elements to reflect our brand. So we'll start with the logo. So we're going to replace it. We're going to use the NMPAN logo. You can make it a lot smaller. That is way too big. So we're going to make it, yay big. It doesn't stand out super well on this really dark text. So I'm going to change the color of this to nice kind of mossy green. And then if you just click away, didn't like that. So that's doing the background for this image. So, okay, we're gonna change the image first. So this is the header image. You want it to be something that will kind of say who you are, but not get too complicated. I like this picture of a lot of slices of beef. So we do the color behind it just in case on someone's computer the image doesn't load, the color will load, and that will be kind of a nicer design element. Then we come to down here. We obviously are not going to say a special thank you. You're going to change the text here. So let's say we want it to be NMPAN monthly newsletter. And I don't like it when things are on 2 lines, so I'm going to make the font a little bit smaller. 24, 25, it's going to not stand out as much. If you want to change the font, you can. I don't mind this font, so I'm going to leave it, but I could make it into anything.
Can we do
An
Comic
important
Sans?
note, what?
Can we do Comic Sans?
I mean, we can show what it would look like, but we're not gonna. Really do whatever you want. Don't do Comic Sans. People don't like that. An important note about fonts is that these fonts up here that are standard web fonts are going to show in every email browser. So anyone who opens this in any email platform is going to see the font if it is, say, Times New Roman. However, if you were to use a custom web font like Playfair, this is not necessarily going to show up in an email client's like email reader. And so they're going to get a similar font. So for this one, they probably would get Times New Roman. And so you totally can do custom fonts, but I generally like to stick with these standard web fonts because I know that they're going to show up in the emails that I send. Then we're actually going to leave these text boxes, and I just like to leave a little reminder of what I want to put in the email in the text box. So I'm going to say, this is where we give an overview of programs this month. And that kind of reminds me when I open the email template the next time what I want to put there. And I don't need this text box, so I'm going to get rid of it. Then I'm going to have a button. You should always have a button towards the top. The button should be designed to get people to do what you want them to do. So maybe you want people to sign up for a slot, or maybe you want people to visit your website, and you're going to give them a really clear prompt in the button. So we're going to say, we're going to say, view upcoming programs. And then we're going to link that to whatever the website is, and we're going to leave that. And you can leave this as a square like this. We can change the style. So let's say we want it to have a solid border. We want it to be rounded. So it's kind of more like a pill shape. And we could change the background color. So if we wanted the background color to in fact be yellow, we make it yellow. And then if we want the background here to be something different, maybe we just want it to be a little bit lighter. We'll move the color over here so it's a little bit lighter. And that's how we have kind of our sections here. So we have our top image, we have our logo, we have our kind of intro section, we have our button. And then this is where we're going to add kind of our sections for the newsletter. And you don't have to keep all of these. So let's say you actually only want to have 2 sections. What you're going to do is you're just going to come in here and you're going to delete all of the content blocks for the sections that you don't want to have. So now we have our top section, we have our kind of header bit where we give the overview, and then we have our remaining sections. So let's say we want to have this section be news from NMPAN, and we want one of them to be this could be processor of the month. And then you can replace your image. So let's say we want to show this cute cow. You're going to get some weird size things. So this image, because it's a rectangle, is going to not show up the way that you want it to be. So I'm going to crop it so it's a square so that it'll show up better in the space that I want it to be. Then I'm going to save it. And it's going to show up a little bit bigger. So you're going to, here you can change the fonts. Again, so like maybe we don't want this to be italicized. Well, it wants to be italicized. Well, you can change the fonts. You can change your links down here. That's how you're going to do that. And then you're going to do the same thing down here. So you have, you have your processor of the month. You have your, let's say we're doing it for a plant now. Maybe you have your new sausage flavors. And then instead of having text like this, we can do them in bullet points, and it can be like sweet Italian, hot Italian, brats. And then our link here would be, we'd add the link, but the text would be like, see new flavors. You want your links to be really clear what people are going to do when they are on the other end of them. Then you just come here and you hyperlink it. So this is my new website, obviously not new flavors, but that'll show us how we get the link. And again, we'll change the image. For this one, we'll do an image of sausages because it's new sausage flavors. We're going to change, you're going to edit the shape of your image again. So 4:3, and then we can actually turn it so that it's coming more sideways if we wanted. I like squares. We'll square again. Get that image a little bit bigger. So then we have our pasta of the month, we have our new sausage flavors, and those are those sections, so we'll always remember to put them there. And then our final section is we're going to edit, is we're going to do, find us online is helpful. This invites people to see you. If you don't want this section, you can get rid of it, but it's another section that you can include. And then we're going to come to the bottom, and obviously we don't want this image, so we could do the same image that we did above. I feel like grass is always nice in kind of meaty settings. So we have this grass image below. If we want to change the background here to match background above, we can do that. Or if we want it to be a different color, maybe we want it to be more of like a dark blue down here, we can do that. And then, so we have our sections, we have our changed image. This is a bad color choice, I'm very sorry. We'll do our dark blue again for this color. If you want to exactly match your colors, you're going to come here, you're going to copy the hex. You're going to up to the top. You're going to paste it in. Then your colors should match. And then you're going to save and close. And then what you're going to do is you're going to enter preview mode. You're going to look at how your template looks on desktops. This is what it would look like. As you can see, it's pretty much the same as the original template we started with. I've mostly just changed the colors and the images, but it still has that organization of information. You want to also double check it on mobile. Something like 40% of people read emails on their phones, and sometimes things that look really good on your desktop look really bad on phone. So you always want to check it on mobile. Just make sure that, you don't have too much text that's breaking up weirdly, or your images aren't coming through. This one's looking pretty good because someone already did all of the design work to format it so it would look good on both, which is another reason to use the template. And then the final step is you can send a test email. So you can send a test email to yourself, you can send it to your ops manager, whoever you want to give you feedback. And that's the final step. And then once you do that, you save and exit, you give it a name, say, newsletter template. And the next time that you go to create a campaign, it's going to be right there for you to use. So we go to all campaigns, we click create campaign, do email, regular email, call it campaign sample 2. We go in, we choose who we're sending it to, who we're sending it from, make the subject line, and then we click design email. And we can select a template, and from our saved templates, we have our newsletter template, which is the one that we just built. On that, eventually it should load. And here it is. Now we see it, and you can make any changes that you want to actually build it for that month. That's how you build and use your template. And what I want to do now actually is show you a better example of what a template looks like in use than the one that I built really quickly. And so this is the one that David and I were talking about that we built for the mastermind. And so as you can see, it's that same template. We have, that heading image up here. We have the Meat Processor Academy Mastermind logo on top of a little box. we have, the name of the session, we do a session summary, and then our call to action here is just to review the slides. Then the way that we chose to split it up is actually less images than we had in that example. So we just do 3 themes from the month. We have that little line that divides the content. We do 3 questions from the month, a line to divide the content. So you can see we're still pulling from that original template. We've just gotten rid of the images and the text being kind of aligned to one side or the other. And then we close with just the class materials. We don't do a find us online because they know where to find everyone, and we're just talking about class. And then we have that image in the bottom footer. And so that's kind of how we used that template that you just saw me design from the really nice bookstore one and turn it into something that feels really Meat Processor Academy specific. And David and I didn't have to make like really intense decisions about how we were going to organize the information visually.
Yeah, it's been insanely helpful because, generally in previous courses, when I send out a monthly update, I'm starting from scratch in Gmail. I'm like inserting images, and it's like a novel, and nobody reads them, and there's like a ton of information in there, but it's really hard to find where that information is. And so I find myself like creating all these things like I'm writing a message in AOL 3.0 in 1996, where there's like lines of stars to divide things, and like I'm just creating all of these things to like get your attention. And it takes me an hour and a half to 2 hours to write one of these emails generally, until we created that template. And now an
So
update
easy.
maybe takes me 10 minutes because I have the content in my mind already. I'm able to link my resources from somewhere. So, and I've got some examples to talk about where some small processors have started using this, and how it can be really useful. But it's just like completely freed up 2 hours of my life every other week, having this.
It's the goal. So very briefly, before we do some broad email marketing tips and open up to questions, just automations are a little bit more complicated. But basically what happens is all automations have a trigger. And so that trigger might be you manually adding people. It might be that someone signs up on your mailing list. So this automation is, contact signs up to the Taste Profit newsletter. They get an email, there's a delay, they get an email, there's a delay, they get an email, there's a delay, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's like you can do like if else conditions. So like, let's say you meet someone at a conference and you add them to your mailing list, and then you want to see if they have actually purchased from you. You can add this if else condition that's like has purchased, hasn't purchased, and get separate emails. Honestly, we should probably do another NMPAN live about email automations because they are very complicated. But also if this is like a tiny self-plug here. If you sign up for my Taste Profit welcome series, if you go to tasteprofit.com and plug your email in, we have a welcome series lead magnet that is kind of like you get a template for what a welcome series can look like, and also some nice videos of me explaining how to set one up in Mailchimp. So that's an easy way to get going on it sooner if you're interested in getting into automations.
That's fascinating.
If you want
So
to go back to the slides.
essentially it can like manage, it can like do a bunch of customer management for you, is what you're saying, like based on kind of how they engage with your website, or like the
Yes,
buttons on your
it's
website.
all about like how they engage with your website, and also like how your website communicates with Mailchimp. So I can't like promise that they can do all your customer management, but they are a really good way to like if you find yourself sending the same emails to the same types of people over and over again, they're a really good way to automate. So before we open up for questions, I just have 5 email tips. They're not super meat specific, but they are if you want to get into this email marketing game. This is a really good place. These are a really good place to start. So my first tip is that consistency is the most important thing when it comes to emails. You want to be sending your emails on a regular schedule. It is better to be sending less polished, shorter emails every month than it is to be sending like a beautiful, perfect email every 6 to 8 weeks, but sometimes it takes 3 months and no one really knows when they're coming. And the way that I make sure that happens is that I create a content calendar for any person that I'm sending regular emails for. So this is for kitchen table consultants. This is my content calendar for the next 4 months. In June, I sent a newsletter about data digging before starting an enterprise. In July, I'm going to send one about a mid-year financial check-in. In August, it's going to be 5 questions to ask to determine if you need to sell your business. And in September, it's going to be QuickBooks tips and tricks. And I know that that's what's happening. And I know that I just have to sit down for 2 hours once a month and create that email. And that's a really good way to kind of stay on track and make sure I'm sending consistent emails. Second tip is super important. Write in short sentences, your short paragraphs, short sentences too. Your paragraph should be no more than 3 sentences. When I first started in my marketing career, I was constantly getting, not in trouble, but getting feedback because I wrote in too long of paragraphs because I just had so much to say. But the fact of the matter is that everyone skims emails. No one like sits down and reads them like they read a book. And if your emails aren't short paragraphs, they're easier to skim. They'll be more readable. People will be more likely to engage with them. So if you look at this example, like this could be 1 paragraph. We're talking about bulk beef. We're talking about Costco, but it's 3 paragraphs because that makes it easier to read. And that actually leads right into tip number 3, which is to include lots of white space in your emails and your templates. White space is that space in between lines of text or images. When you include lots of white space, instead of cramming everything together, it makes it way easier to look at the email, more pleasant to read, easier to understand. So this is kind of the bottom of an email template that I made for a client. And this is kind of inviting people to shop, but you can see there's a ton of white space above that shop now button, below the shop now button, around some of our most popular items, even like within the items themselves, like between the brisket beef and the view item, I added some white space. And that's just like, it's a really easy way to make your designs look nicer. And then tip number 4 is to write to a person. So you should imagine that there is in fact a real person reading your emails. I mean, there are many real people reading your emails, but you should think about one of them, and you should write to that person. It's going to make your writing way more personable, way more engaging if it's directed to an individual as opposed to just like an audience group. So this is an email that I wrote about, getting help with marketing, hiring a marketing agency. And I could have said, when farmers put marketing on the back burner and push it to the bottom of the to-do list, they have trouble selling their products. And business growth happens better when farmers don't feel like they have to do it alone and ask for help with marketing. And if you were the farmer reading that email, you'd be like, okay, thank you for telling me about myself, but you wouldn't be engaged. Whereas when I say, you deserve sales and business growth, when you are constantly putting marketing on the back burner and pushing it to the bottom of your to-do list, it's hard for you to sell your food. And so adding that really like personalized touch just makes it so that everyone wants to read your email more. And then my final tip is just to have fun with it. I think that email is really your opportunity to build real connection with your customers, your potential customers, and share why you do what you do. And it doesn't have to be super formal. Just because you're putting it in a beautiful template and sending it from an email software provider instead of from your Gmail account doesn't mean that you have to suddenly become this super polished person that you're not. I think that the reason that I got so into email marketing is that I think it gives us the biggest opportunity to kind of use words to share why we're doing what we're doing and why it matters. I think that's really fun.
Okay. Awesome. I'm really excited about a couple of things that you talked about in there. As we switch over the NPAN newsletter, I'm going to have a lot more questions for you, Maura, but as anyone knows who has ever seen it, if you were to print it out, it's probably 17 pages. I collect every single interesting thing that I see in the entire month and put it in one newsletter, and my metrics are terrible. I have like a 0.5% open rate and but it's completely different with the mastermind newsletter, it's totally different because it's just the high level stuff. So I'm definitely gonna have a lot of questions about that as we go. And I already do have a lot of questions from folks that sent them to me prior to this, kind of like in anticipation of it. So I'll share those in a second. But if anybody has any questions to kick it off, feel free as I pull these up. Let's see. I've got one to start. Okay. Let's see. Chris has got one. Ashlyn's got one. Heck yeah. Okay. So let's start with Chris. Any tips on maximizing your audience groups? Based on Mailchimp analytics, how can you maximize click-through and engagement by modifying the target audience?
The best way to do that is to create audience groups. I think that people don't necessarily realize that that's something that you can do, and you can do it manually. If you know your customers, you can also do it through like a sign up form. You just ask people to like click what they're interested in and automatically apply a tag to their profile based on what they're interested in, and then create segments based on those tags. So that's the first step, is creating audience groups. And the second step is sending them different content. You can have, let's say you have one newsletter, but you send it 2 separate times to 2 separate audience groups that have different interests, and you don't include the things that they are thinking about. So Chris, like for you, if you have people who are coming into Marrow to the butcher shop with that list, you want to be sending them content that's really tailored to coming into the shop and to draw them into the shop. You want to include like a little bit about how they can go to Westbourne and buy sausages, but you actually don't want to have that be the focus because you still want them to come to the shop. Whereas for your wholesale clients and for your customers that you're getting through wholesale sales, you really want to hone in on like, look where you can buy our sausages square.
Okay, that's really interesting. About the sign up and then applying a tag. That's something I would love to explore, like if we do a follow up with the automation stuff. Ashlyn asks, when starting out, do you have to manually add your subscribers?
If you have emails that live somewhere, yes. And Mailchimp makes it really easy to do. You got to add your subscribers. They basically give you the format that you need to make a spreadsheet with, and you include basically like the top of every column is a category of information. So like first name, last name, email address, zip code. And you just like plug in all the information to your spreadsheet, and then you import it into Mailchimp, and they turn it into contacts. And if you don't have subscribers, you can then get those forms from Mailchimp that you like add to your website. But there's always an option to manually add subscribers, and that's worth doing if you have emails. But side note, if you have email addresses from random people and they have not expressly given you permission to send them email marketing, for example, like your customers, you can send them transactional emails. So you can send them emails that are like, here's your receipt, or like, place your next order. But you cannot send them like email newsletters because they haven't consented to receive email marketing, and that can get you marked as spam. And if you get marked as spam, it's really hard to come back from that. So it's not worth doing. It's better to ask them if they want to receive email marketing. You can even send them one email that says, do you want to receive email marketing? And that counts as like them giving you consent.
Carly asks or says, we have a mix of locations on our email list already. I don't know who is from where, i.e., how best to sort this out and promote info about New York versus Pennsylvania market info.
Yes, this is one of my biggest challenges with my email list that I own from my emails that I send for my job. It's really hard. The best way to do it is to plug them all into something. Like if you're using Mailchimp or using another email software provider, they should give you the option to do a survey within your email. And so you send everyone an email that says, I want to send you better emails. I would love to be able to send you targeted information about markets in your area. Please click on this survey, and it just has like 2 options, like send me information about New York, send me information about Pennsylvania, send me information about both. And they click that, and then you take that information, those clicks, and you turn them into a segment. But yeah,
Stacy,
you have to get the information from them. Like if you have their email, there's no way to like find out unless they tell you, unfortunately.
Stacy asks, what if they contacted us through our website requesting information? Does that count as consent to receive email marketing?
It depends on what the contact form on your website says. It's likely that the contact form on your website has like a little line that says like, by submitting my email, I consent to receive email marketing. If it doesn't, they haven't consented and you still have to ask them. But you should, if you have contact forms on your website, just add a little line that says, like either like a checkbox that lets them explicitly say, I want email marketing. Like, when you order something online and they ask you if you want to get email marketing. And I always say no, despite the fact that I am the person who sends email marketing. Or you can just add a line that says, by submitting my email here, I consent to receive email marketing.
Okay, and so are those checkboxes available like in Elementor or Squarespace or whatever? That's just like an easy drag and drop object
Yeah, they
function.
should be. And they should be as soon as you connect your email software provider to your website provider, it becomes super easy to add all of those things.
Great. Okay. Let's see. I've got a couple questions that were submitted beforehand. So here's the first one. If you're mostly linking to content in the newsletter to other pages, so for instance, what we've talked about for the NPAN newsletter, instead of me writing just like the Mother Jones diary or like whatever that Mother Earth news thing that's like 50 pages long of everything that's ever happened in organic agriculture, right? Like, which is what I do today, and just having like a few exciting headlines. You're going to click on it, it's going to take you to the content. So it's not like a big word vomit. It's actually just like a couple of things you can choose, right? If you're doing that with your newsletter, is the content that you link to within Mailchimp, or are those website posts or web pages that you have in your web host, your server? God, I clearly do not know what
Those
I'm
should be
talking about.
website pages.
Okay, web pages. Gotcha. Okay,
There
and
should be like pretty much every email you send. Okay, every email you send should have a goal. I don't know if you know this. In general, the goal is to get the person to your website. If you want to be a little more specific, like if you have new sausage flavors and you want people to start ordering new sausages, the goal can be like order new sausage. But in general, the goal is to get them to your website because once they're on your website, then they can click around to other things. So if you host the link to whatever NMPAN piece of information on the NMPAN site, they click that link because they're excited and then they're like, oh, look at this drop down menu. I want to check out all these other things. And then they're more engaged with you.
so do you recommend so those pieces of content that you're linking to in that monthly newsletter or whatever, like, do you recommend continuing to host those, or like, my concern is that I'm going to, over the course of 3 years, have like hundreds of posts to host this content. Like, do you recommend that those stay hosted over time, or after the newsletter has been out for like a month or two, you can delete that stuff? What do you recommend?
I think it depends on what it is. If it's like really time specific, I don't think you need to keep it. If it's something that you think you're going to want to link to again, you might as well keep it because then you don't have to rebuild it next time.
Sure.
You
Okay.
can also do them as unlinked pages, so they're not like visible to people who are looking at your like menu. They are only You can only access them if you have the link.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, let's see. Here's a few questions in a row, from someone who submitted. My first question relates to getting feedback and replies from retailers that we sell wholesale products to. I've reached out to countless retailers offering to help them with custom signage, product sampling, etc., but I struggle to get any replies. I understand that the retailers are busy, but my offerings are completely free to them and only require minimal feedback to pursue. What is the best way to contact business partners to receive feedback? How should these emails be formatted to encourage feedback and additional conversation?
That's the question. I think there's like a few things here. The first thing that you want with an email is to get people to open the email. The one thing that gets people to open an email is the subject line. That's it. Nothing else. It doesn't matter what's inside the email. If you have a bad subject line, no one's going to open your email. They're not going to see what's inside the email. So your subject line should be really clear. It should be engaging, and it should make them want to learn more. And a great way to work on your subject lines is there's a resource called subjectline.com. It is a tool where you type in your subject line and it gives you a score from 0 to 100 to tell you how good your subject line is. I will say that, like any other online scoring thing, it has an algorithm, and after a while you kind of learn the algorithm, and sometimes I write really bad subject lines and they still score highly, but it is really helpful if you're starting out with subject lines. And so you want to start with a really clear subject line, and then you want to do multiple touches. They say that it takes someone like 12 times of seeing something to actually decide that they want to do it. So just one email to a retailer, who knows, maybe it comes in a really busy week where a million things are going wrong and they don't even look at it. And so that could be a time where like you build an automation and you have 3 or 4 emails that go out every 2 days to kind of drive home this idea. And then the other thing is that you really want to, with emails like this, you really want to be offering as much or more than you're asking for. And so even if what you're asking for is like free, or you're still asking for like them to take the time and them to follow through. Or if you're asking for them to like purchase your products, you want to make sure that you're also giving them something. So that might be recipes. If you're like trying to sell meat direct to consumer, that might be a recipe that they can use the meat for. Or some sort of idea. In this situation, if you're working with the retailers, you want to make sure that it's really clear what you're offering. So it might be like free signage or like free product sampling is your subject line. So they're like, oh, I don't have to do anything. And then you're like, all I need from you is a phone call for 15 minutes to decide the day. And then I'll show up with all of the samples. And so just being really clear that you are giving an offer is the best thing. And then in terms of like how the email should be formatted, kind of all of those things that we said above, like make sure you have enough white space and your paragraphs are short and you're writing to a real person. And that in general, you're just making them engaging and feel like they're coming from a real person to a real person.
Okay, Whitney asks, what is a standard frequency for a regular newsletter? I want to keep my people in the loop but not annoy them.
So you can never send too many emails. This is the hardest truth for me to learn when I got into email marketing, because I hate receiving emails. But fact of the matter is, if you don't send an email, that information isn't getting to people. And even if if you're sending emails to 15 people and 10 of them are ignoring them, but 5 of them are clicking through and doing the thing that you want, those 5 wouldn't have done that if you hadn't sent the email. That said, you should only be sending the number of emails that you are capable of sending. So like if sending an email every day is not capable, first of all, you should not be sending an email every day. I know that I said there were no such thing as too many emails, but like newsletters, you don't send one every day. But it's like, what can you keep up with? I like to start people on monthly newsletters. Like that's where I would start if you are just implementing a newsletter for the first time. Start out trying it out monthly. If you find that you are sending a really long newsletter, maybe break it into 2 different ones, like a policy update newsletter and a product update newsletter or something like that. Or if you find that people are really engaged and they want to hear more, then go to like a bi-weekly newsletter. But I would start with like monthly is like a really good cadence to start.
I'd kind of like to ask this question to everybody and just hear what tips people have and successes that people have run into over time. Mara, I'd really want to hear your feedback on this. And this is kind of a paraphrase of several questions that I got beforehand. And ultimately, like, the overwhelming feedback that I get at NPAN, whether it's from producers or processors, is that the relationship between producers and processors continues to be adversarial. and the relationship between producers and buyers for either, third-party audit requiring retailers or small country markets, like buyers and producers, or that relationship can be strained and adversarial. But especially the processors and producers. So when you have an audience that you want to build relationship with, and you want to do that through reaching out, like keeping them in the loop, like embracing transparency, right? But they already kind of don't want to hear from you. What can you do using email campaigns to build relationship, like to just start there before you're selling something, like to just bring them in? What do you recommend? Or anybody that's out there in the audience, like if you have any experience with using a newsletter as a relationship builder versus necessarily like a marketing technique, I would love to hear, and the people that ask this question would love to hear what you have to say about that. So Mara, do you want to start?
I think it's kind of doing exactly what you said. It's not just making a sales pitch. So it is, if you have some sort of like if you have an internal like employee recognition program happening, and you want to like share that in your monthly newsletter, like here's the employee of the month, or here's something that we're really proud of that happened this month. Just kind of like giving that view into who you are, like making it clear that you are a bunch of people who are doing a thing that, you and your buyer, you and your processor, like you need each other. And it's a lot easier to kind of meet in the middle if you remember that you are all a bunch of people who are ultimately working towards the same thing. So a lot of it is just kind of like include, like in my newsletters that I send out every month for Taste Profit and for Kitchen Table Consultants, I talk about whatever my topic of the month is, and then I talk about resources and events. And then I have a section that I call like fun things. And we profile a different staff member each month, and we talk about what they're reading, what they're cooking, and what they're watching. And it's just a way to kind of like make it clear that our people are also people who have lives that aren't just like writing emails for them or scheduling social media posts. So I think kind of bringing in that personal touch. And then I think also like it is just about doing it. Like it's going to be weird at first. And the people who are already kind of grumpy with you are going to be grumpy about it. But there's a little bit of like, you just have to like keep going. And as people get used to the idea that like when you send an email, it isn't just bad news, that it is like, a fun story about something that happened, or like a tip, like you find that everyone is coming in and when they're unloading, they're doing this one thing that is making the animals really agitated. And instead of like sending everyone a mean email that's like, stop doing this one thing, if you phrase it in your newsletter, it's like, here's a tip to make your animals more calm when they're unloading. And it's part of that newsletter that you already have where you're already sharing like the employee of the month and the recipe that you made for the company potluck. Then they're like, oh yeah, look at this one tip from these people that are real people that I trust. Not like, here's these people that are always yelling at me again.
It's a really, really good idea about the tip of the month, like especially if it's about some point in the relationship. I mean, would it be like complete mania to include like the corrective action of the month? Like we had this problem at the plant and here's what we did to fix it. Like would that level of transparency be too much open kimono, or like would that be
I would not start with that. I think I would throw that in once you've like built the relationship.
sure, sure.
But I think also like it's also fun. People love being like feeling special. Like if you want to do like, here's our producer of the month, like we really loved so and so's hogs this month because they were really clean and had beautiful marbling. Or something like that. Like kind of include people, make them feel special. Never hurts. People love to be included and called out for things they're doing well.
Hmm. Does anybody else have any experience with relationship building through newsletters where it's not necessarily focused around like a pitch or a call to action? Curious about that. This, I think, is something really powerful that I wanna start to explore and maybe have kind of a follow up. webinar for processors because of this kind of like we're trying to break these walls down a little bit, and make this more. There's so much money left on the table because of the adversarial relationships we have in producers and processors, right? And yeah, just curious if anybody has any experience with that out there.
Or like imagine if you sent a newsletter that was like, here's how to fill out your cut sheet. And it was like step-by-step process of how to fill out a cut sheet so that you would have that content. So then you'd written it and you could like send it out to new people. And so instead of like getting really mad every time someone called and had a crazy cut sheet question, you could
Sure.
like, it's all about that kind of like taking those steps to model what you are looking for out of the relationship instead of just like relying on either it happening naturally or like your producers like just naturally knowing, which we know they generally don't.
Okay, let's see. So this is the last one. What is the best way to stay up to date on follow-ups and check-ins with anyone ranging from customers to business partners? Is there a tool that I can use to help organize that data?
So that one is complicated. It depends on if you're trying to follow up like really individually with one person or if you're trying to kind of do broader follow-ups. Um, Email software providers like Mailchimp are really only good if you're sending emails to multiple people at once. It's actually very, very challenging to send one email to one person in Mailchimp. You have to like jump through a lot of hoops. You have to like create a segment where it's just that person in the segment. It's not really worth the effort. So if you're trying to do like individual follow-ups, you're better off just like finding a really good project management tool and putting in tasks in your project management tool. So like we use Asana at my job, so I just like have Asana tasks that remind me to follow up with people. Or honestly, I just put it in my Google Calendar as like a calendar event on the day that I need to do it. That said, if you're looking to do kind of like, if you're looking to every 3 months check in with your customers and do a customer survey, that's a really great thing to automate. You can build a template for your customer survey email, and you can either go in every month and just send that email template, or you can actually create an automation that sends every 90 days and then like restarts the automation. So it's all about that question. I think it's all about whether you're trying to do like really personalized or if you're just trying to have like regular communication.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I have one more. But please do interrupt me if you do. If anybody wants to work with you, Mara, to kind of go through, for instance, obviously I'm going to ask you to go through those things again because it takes me a couple of times to pick up on this stuff. But if anybody wants to work with you to build a template or talk further about this, or maybe view something that you already have preloaded, like a video or something, how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, you can just send me an email. I'll put it in the chat. My email is mara@tasteprofit.com. And we do like big scale marketing. Like if you want a huge marketing project, we do that sort of thing. We also do, we do like time block work. So like if you just want to spend 2 hours with me going over your existing emails and talking about ways to make them better, we can do that. Or if you just have like one question that you want to send me an email, I will just send you an email back telling you the answer because I love working with people in the NMPAN world and I am happy to help however I can. But yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me is just send me an email.
Cool. And this will, I know we kind of went through some of the technical stuff quick because we only had about an hour ish. But this has been recorded, and so I'm going to put this up on NPAN YouTube, and then there's also a way for me to send it out as a follow-up email to everybody here. So I will do that. I'm traveling this week, but when I get back from my butcher excursion, I'll be able to send out the replay, if not sooner. So you'll be able to watch that more slowly and try your hand at putting together some templates yourself to make your life 10 times easier if you're not already using a template of some kind.
Yeah, and if you end up deciding to make a template and you want to just include me on your template test, I am happy to just send you back little bits of template feedback as like, helping you out.
Cool. Okay.
Just also send me an email to tell me what you're doing because I will be really confused if I just end up with endless Mailchimp templates in my inbox.
Okay, note to everyone, send lots of prank email templates to Mara with no context whatsoever. And only use Comic Sans.
Exactly.
Okay, everybody, it's been good to see everyone this morning, and we have a few more of these coming up. We've got three more that are already on the docket, and we're finalizing which one is in which date. But we're going to have one on humane handling, featuring Dr. Kurt Bogle and Ashlyn Kirk from the Humane Handling Institute in Wisconsin. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to be speaking with Claire Everson of Western Rain Creative, talking about building a holistic marketing plan and value proposition, and talking about regenerative leadership within the business space. We're going to be speaking with Dr. Denise Perry, an operations expert and former plant manager, basically doing kind of an ask an ops expert. And then we're going to do a little bit of like good cop, bad cop, fun adversarial discussion on why we should deregulate or not deregulate the meat industry. And actually, there's a fourth one, and that's where we're going to be talking with Justine from Taste Profit, and she's going to be helping us with some social media 101 basics, like how to get more bang for your buck instead of just death scrolling when you go on to promote your business, which is what happens to me. So, everybody, it's been great to see you, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for joining us, and we'll hopefully see everyone soon.
Thanks, everyone.